So many spiritualists have a bad habit of sticking their noses into other practitioners' practices and spiritual gifts. And this spiritual policing has nothing to do with morality and everything to do with control. You know, the spiritual police who tell you you can't use a certain herb like they own the plant kingdom. The ones who call your justified anger, rage, or vengeance low vibrational. The ones who say you can't eat meat like they're your licensed dietitian. The ones who say magic is only for spiritual growth, not money or material resources. The ones who say you can't do magic against governments because no one is that powerful, which really means they and their weak-ass ancestors couldn't. The ones who say you can't practice multiple traditions at once because their one-track, one-dimensional minds can't keep up. The ones who say you can't manifest during Mercury retrograde because they don't know how to navigate planetary forces. Notice the pattern. They say these things not because you can't, but because they can't. They are projecting their own limitations and low self-esteem while exerting dominance and control. And their projected limitations is proof that they are not qualified to tell you shit. As I said in my last video, a lot of this comes from religious indoctrination that was never dismantled. They left the church, but they brought the finger wagging with them. They replaced God says with the spiritual rule says. It's the same dependency in a new costume, but it goes deeper. These people aren't policing you because they care about you, your soul, your growth, or the craft. They're doing it because they have very little power and control over themselves, their own lives, their emotions, their nervous systems, or their practice. So controlling others gives them a false sense of power and authority. They don't trust themselves to self-govern, so instead of resolving that insecurity internally, they project and try to regulate you. It's about keeping you smaller than them. And this applies to people who posture themselves as elders, leaders, authorities, and etc. And notice how these are some of the same people who end up in scandals later. Healthy leaders embody and exhibit healthy leadership qualities. The occult is limitless, broad, and diverse, so it requires responsibility, discernment, and self-authorship. That terrifies dysregulated people, so they invent rigid, imaginary rules, moral binaries, and karma threats, not as ethics, but as anxiety management. And here's the real tale. Policing gives them a false sense of power without responsibility. They get a false sense of superiority, authority, and influence without doing the real work and producing results. Policing others lets them feel powerful without being powerful. That's why they're so threatened by practitioners with a direct connection to source, because they don't have one. Plus, they